Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. Prime Minister Mark Carney has unveiled 5 nation-building projects to boost the Canadian economy in the face of a U.S. trade war. The Liberals say it'll generate $60 billion and create tens of thousands of high-paying jobs. Of those 5 projects, none are north of 60. We'll have Northern reaction to that coming up. But first, here's Rafi Boudjikanian with a closer look at the chosen projects.
With no end in sight to the trade war with the U.S., Prime Minister Mark Carney is betting big on convincing Canadians there are other ways of boosting the economy.
We used to build big things in this country, and we used to build them quickly. It's time to get back at it.
Ottawa is asking its newly formed Major Projects Office to look at the following projects: expanding LNG Canada's terminal in Kitimat, BC to double its production of liquefied natural gas, building a small modular reactor an hour east of Toronto, a first it says for a G7 country, and expansions of mines in Saskatchewan and BC, along with an expansion of the Port of Montreal. The Prime Minister expects these facilities alone to generate more than $60 billion in revenue.
The support is there with Indigenous partners. Much of the other work has been done. There's a few things to be done to shepherd across the line.
But along with these first 5 projects is another list of those that need more work and have not been sent to the office yet, and ones that are currently on no list at all, like an oil pipeline, a major ask of Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, who still had kinder words than she has for a federal Liberal government in a long time.
I can tell you that when I looked at the first 5 projects, I thought finally they get it, because it's all the projects that have been difficult to build. It's mining projects, it's LNG Canada, and I think that that demonstrates a real shift in the focus of this government.
From Nova Scotia, also nothing but praise. One of the future development cases is a wind power project off its coast.
What happened today is the federal government said, this is a project that is worthy, and we are supportive, and we will help work with you to make sure that that path to market is open.
But it's not all rave reviews for Carney.
He's not permitted a single major mine, pipeline, nuclear plant, or anything else. What he's done today is announce that he's going to send an email to an office that isn't even fully staffed up yet.
Criticisms that Carney will have to deal with head-on next week when he and Pierre Poilievre face off in Parliament after MPs return to Ottawa for the fall. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Edmonton.
As Rafi just told you, the amount of nation-building projects won't stop at 5. A second wave of national projects is in the wings, and among them, the Arctic Economic and Security Corridor. The project would build a new all-season road. It would pass through the Northwest Territories from Yellowknife all the way up to a new port in Grays Bay, Nunavut. It's a project that's been in the works for years. The NWT's Strategic Infrastructure Minister says it's picking up steam.
We are working very closely now with the traditional holders of the land in the region, and bringing the national office to support our work that is ongoing. It'll move the project along faster, and I'm therefore not concerned about the timeline. I think it's going to get us to a shovel-ready place as fast as we can.
The announcement comes at a time of increasing federal interest in northern infrastructure. As the project picks up momentum, other northern leaders say they're still waiting for the phone to ring.
I would like to see it done. I would like to relay to the Prime Minister that this project is going to be mostly on our territory, and I strongly suggest that he talks to YKDFN and talks to us early.
The second wave of projects could be approved as soon as November. There's been no clear indication of a timeline for the corridor. Carney also announced an Indigenous Advisory Council on Wednesday. It's meant to help guide the work of that new Major Projects Office. The office is responsible for getting those nation-building projects built faster. There are 11 representatives on the Indigenous Advisory Council from Inuit, Métis, and First Nations communities. That includes Kluane Adamak from the Kluane First Nation in the Yukon and Christy Sinclair from Nunavut Tunavik Incorporated. It does not include anyone from the Northwest Territories. The Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, who is also the NWT's MP, says she is confident all Northern perspectives will be heard.
It is, a council made up with Northern voices, and so I do think that the Northern perspective is there, and it's not every province and territory that has a rep, but really making sure that that representatives are from representing the North, as well as Inuit, Métis, and First Nations perspectives.
Alti says the Indigenous Advisory Council will provide policy recommendations. It will not provide recommendations on which projects should go forward. She says the Major Projects Office will also do regional outreach across the country, which will let people in the Northwest Territories meet with representatives directly. Officials have called off the search for a missing man in Fort Resolution, NWT. The week-long search involved the Canadian Coast Guard Auxiliary, Air Search and Rescue, the Canadian Rangers, police drones, search dogs, and local volunteers. The 35-year-old man was reported missing on September 3rd after he left Tulston Bay for Fort Resolution but never arrived. His boat was found beached on Mission Island the next day. 2 men have been charged with second-degree murder in connection with the death of a 31-year-old man who was living in Kuujjuaq, Nunavik. Saanak Yunatwinuk was originally from Kanisulujuaq. He was reported missing to Nunavik police on June 24th. After a joint investigation between Nunavik police and the Sûreté du Québec, a 28-year-old man from Kuujjuaq and a 57-year-old man from Montreal were arrested and charged Tuesday in connection with the death.
They appeared in court on various charges, including second-degree murder, complicity in murder, and indignity to a corpse.
Both men were remanded into custody. A memorial service for Yunatwinuk was held in Kuujjuaq on Tuesday. Canada's Supreme Court is marking 150 years since its inception. And in honor of the anniversary, 3 justices are coming to the Northwest Territories. Starting on Sunday, Chief Justice Richard Wagner, along with Justices Nicholas Kassir and Michelle O'Bonswain, will be in Yellowknife. They'll meet with students, the public, and people in the legal community. It's the 3rd stop in a 5-city tour across the country. The tour is meant to help make the Supreme Court a little more accessible to Canadians. Chief Justice Wagner explains how the court's decisions are relevant to Northerners.
Well, I think the court is relevant to every citizen in this country, but also, of course, with the Northwestern population. There are so many issues, legal issues, that can impact the life of any citizens, including the life of the citizens up north. Access to justice is much, I would say, sometimes much more difficult up north because of the distance, because of the cost, because in many places, even access to technology is more difficult. There are people in Canada that don't have internet. And when we talk about access to justice, we talk about access to information. And you need internet to facilitate that knowledge. So there are some realities up north that you will not find in the southern part of the country. And the decisions that the court is called to release have an impact on individual life of citizens in Yellowknife, for instance. I think that reconciliation is a concept that is applicable to every stakeholders in the justice system. Of course, the Supreme Court, like any other courts in Canada at every level, will decide cases when the cases are brought before the court. And we need to decide these cases according to the law and according to the evidence. And whenever those cases are brought before the court, we will decide. And as you know, for the last at least 50 years, if not more, the Supreme Court was called to decide issues dealing with Indigenous rights and the application of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So there is no doubt that our decisions have made a difference in society, more particularly since the adoption of the Charter of Rights in 1982.
There's a town hall style event with the justices at the NWT Legislative Assembly in Yellowknife on Sunday. That starts at 10 a.m. Today marked a return home for Fort Providence residents. And for students, schools are preparing to welcome them back when they're ready. Fort Providence evacuated to Hay River at the end of August, days after the school year started. Dega Elementary and Secondary School has around 105 students ranging between junior kindergarten and high school. The principal says the school is ready to welcome students back as soon as Monday.
There's a few of us that are ready to be there on Monday because we will have some kids that need that support of the school system that may just need to be connected with us. So we will have some staff there on Monday and Tuesday that will feel ready to be there.
Classes will officially resume on Wednesday for students. SAP says the school is prioritizing student mental health and balancing getting students settled back into the school year. The Yukon government has released a report summarizing public feedback about a potential new school in downtown Whitehorse. The report compiled feedback from a survey and public meetings. It says 80% of survey respondents were in support. There are two potential locations. One is the site of the École Whitehorse Elementary School. Students at that school are set to move to a new location in the Takini neighborhood. The other is at the corner of 5th and Rogers Streets. That site was originally earmarked for multi-unit housing. The Yukon Department of Education says there is potential to combine the new school with housing.
One of the things about building in the downtown is we have a constraint of space in any location. And so with some schools, you might think of a traditional school, maybe single floor, but in the case of a downtown, we might be looking at building up maybe 2 stories, 3 stories, which would give us the opportunity to have mixed development, including residential.
The feedback will be used to draft a plan for the school. Nunavut students attending post-secondary will get more money from the territorial government. Nunavut's education department is increasing the amount of money students can receive through the Financial Assistance for Nunavut Students program, or FANS. A single student studying in the South will now get $2,900 a month for housing. That's an increase from the previous sum of $1,500. There will also be an increase to the program's disability grant, and strict enrollment deadlines will be removed. The department also says it plans to replace the FANS program entirely next year with a reworked student support program. More information on the changes is listed on the Nunavut government's FANS webpage. A correction to a court story we've been reporting on. Adam Lougheed was sentenced in a Whitehorse courtroom on Wednesday. He was the driver in the hit-and-run death of cyclist Joe Morrison, which happened last year on the Alaska Highway. Lougheed pleaded guilty to 4 charges, including dangerous driving causing death. We previously reported that Lougheed was sentenced to 7 years in jail. In fact, his sentence is 6.5 years. He received a credit of 18 months for time already served. He has 5 years remaining in his sentence.
The future is everything. Stories of incredible ingenuity, dedication, and some extraordinary teamwork. This is parenthood.
Take a voyage with me to the vast, remote, most extreme place on Earth.
For many, this will be a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Where the effects of climate change are intensifying.
The poles are a very rapidly changing place.
And geopolitical cracks threaten peace and stability.
Do you think there's a security concern?
I definitely do.
Experience the historic all-Canadian mission. CBC in Antarctica, Watch free on CBC Gem.
Want to get the most out of CBC News? Use the app or cbcnews.ca for live breaking news on the stories that matter to you. Whether it's local, national, or around the world, turn to CBC News.
It makes sense that they get a larger share, or does it?
Welcome to the Greenbelt.
All of this, just single-detached homes.
Yes.
What do we know? I think we can explain.
About that with Andrew Chang.
Although the NBA currently is flooded with Canadian players, this was not a reality.
A new immigration law.
This story, it's directly tied to all those families who made a brave choice to come to this country.
My favorite word.
Tariff! How seriously are you taking this threat?
It's the uncertainty that's the biggest issue.
Canada, we got you.
Elbows up!
It's the time of year where many start turning on their heaters and sparking the first fire in wood stoves. But without proper maintenance, what starts off as a cozy cabin could turn into someone's worst nightmare. The CBC's Chris McIntyre passes on some simple tips from the Yukon's fire marshal to ensure that the only fire that happens this winter is in your wood stove.
Like a lot of Yukoners and Northerners, I own a wood stove. Actually, 2. So that's why, for me, it's extremely important to make sure both stoves are thoroughly clean before I start my first fire for the season. According to the Yukon Fire Marshal's office, the #1 cause for chimney fires is creosote buildup. Now, burning any type of wood creates creosote, a highly flammable tar-like substance that can cause a chimney to catch on fire. But burning wet or green wood can cause large amounts of creosote to build up within the chimney walls. So, before I start any fires in either stove, the Yukon Fire Marshal recommends thoroughly cleaning the chimney and stove. If you don't have a wood stove and rely on other sources of heat like a furnace or electricity, it's important to make sure your furnace has had its annual maintenance. Yukon's Fire Marshal says before starting any electric baseboards, it's important to clean and remove any debris like plant leaves or toys from them. Prevention measures don't stop indoors. Here in the north, we have to plug in our vehicles if the temperature drops. Make sure your extension cords are in good shape and you're not overloading the power bars. Last but not least, the fire marshal advises never stack firewood against your house or against the wood stove inside, because in the event of a fire, this will significantly add to the fire load. Now, even with all of these measures, it doesn't mean a house or structure fire can't happen, but the fire marshal's office says take these easy-to-do steps before the snow falls, and it will significantly reduce the risk. Chris McIntyre, CBC News, Dawson City.
Very important tips from Chris McIntyre there from a completely cozy-looking cabin. I'll have to visit. Nunavut Premier PJ Akiaguk says the territorial government's rollout of vans to assist elders has not been the smoothest. The topic was brought up on Wednesday in the Legislative Assembly. The project was first announced in October 2024. The vans were purchased by the government for $1 million. They were meant to help elders get around in 5 communities. Even though they've been delivered, they haven't hit the streets. PJ Akiaguk is also the minister responsible for seniors. Speaking with reporters on Wednesday, he said the government understands the urgency of the situation.
But there's obviously been struggles, as it's been the frustration you see right across in terms of the operations have yet to be realized. But we're very hopeful that the proponent who was able to secure the vans will get those fundings to make those vans operationalized.
Akiaguk says the government of Nunavut isn't in a position to financially support Northern Future Skills Development. That's the company that won the contract to run the vans. CBC News has requested comment from the company. In northern Saskatchewan, a rapidly spreading pest is destroying the wild rice harvest. Rice worms are threatening the traditional crop that Indigenous communities have used for generations. Alexander Silverman has more on the search for a solution.
On remote northern lakes in Saskatchewan's boreal forest,
Phyllis and Tommy Smith are ready to harvest their dense patch of wild rice, a traditional food for Cree communities here for generations.
Right here, and here's another one.
But these pests, known as rice worms, are threatening to destroy their livelihood.
You depend on rice for a lot of things, so it's pretty devastating.
Smith and his wife gathered just 20 bags last harvest. The average before the rice worms was 400.
It's a big loss.
A very big loss, yeah. You almost feel like there's no use for me having a harvesting boat.
Wild rice is a major economic driver in northern Saskatchewan villages. A good harvest can bring in as much as $100,000 for a family. But at the local rice weighing station, there's growing concern as these insects eat away harvesters' income.
These worms are getting to be a big problem.
Lionel Smith says the bugs are killing so much of his rice, he's decided not to harvest at all.
20-30% of your crop is damaged.
That's a lot of income.
Yeah, yes it is.
Researchers are now testing a type of trap using pheromones to attract the insects away from the rice. Experts don't know exactly why the worms are making their way north from Manitoba and the U.S. They believe forest fires could be one driver.
You get new growth, and then it provides kind of an opportunity to the rice worm moths.
Some are considering leaving the industry.
Right now, is the future of wild rice under threat?
I would say yes. We almost want to give up.
Harvesters in this region are trying to gather whatever rice is left behind and say the search for a solution to save their livelihoods can't come soon enough. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, near Pinehouse, Saskatchewan.
The Canadian Medical Association is warning about the rise of medical misinformation. It says science is under attack online, and that's putting patients' lives at risk. Alison Northcott explains the concerns and the possible countermeasures.
It is safe to say that we need to check other sources.
16-year-old Chloe Casito is a teen fact-checker debunking health myths online.
To show other teenagers online that they are capable of determining whether a claim online is misinformation or if it's correct.
The Canadian Medical Association says false health information is causing serious harm to patients. In a statement warning misinformation is increasingly shaping public discourse, public beliefs, and policy actions.
This is a good example of influencers on TikTok pushing unproven ideas about sunscreen.
Timothy Caulfield, who studies misinformation around science and health, says experts need to speak out.
To stand in solidarity with entities around the world that are really struggling against regressive movements. And of course, the United States is the strongest example of that, but we're seeing it really everywhere.
The CMA points to examples of popular misinformation, including around vaccines, and underscores current evidence shows vaccines do not cause or increase the risk for autism. Dr. Joseph Daheen treats patients in the intensive care unit, but also takes time to talk about his work on social media because he's seen the harms of misinformation firsthand.
I've had a patient die from ignoring her symptoms and had metastatic breast cancer. And I had an elderly gentleman who was brainwashed at the time of COVID, thinking that this didn't exist, and actually died because he refused our care.
Casito says countering false claims doesn't have to be complicated.
Sometimes all it takes is a Google search. Sometimes all it takes is using a fact-checking website.
The Canadian Medical Association says improving access to primary care would help too, so people can ask their doctor about their health instead of relying on the internet. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Some people living near St. John's have unsafe water flowing through their taps. And they only found out because a local chemistry professor started asking questions. Jayla Bernstein investigated the issue and discovered contamination may be spreading beyond what the government has caught.
When chemist Carl Jobst started testing for toxic chemicals, he had no idea how far the trail would lead him.
And this is essentially industrial wastewater that's being discharged from the airport.
Just on the other side of this fence line here is the St. John's International Airport, and about 1 kilometer from here is where there's a site, a former fire training area, contaminated by forever chemicals, and the culprit there is firefighting foam. Transport Canada is responsible for the site. Last year, it warned people here that forever chemicals, or PFAS, had spread to some wells in this subdivision of Torbay. By doing his own further tests, Jobst has now found contamination in a different area, over 3 kilometers away in a wetland called the Gully.
Oh my goodness.
Jobst tested this family's tap water. It was within Canada's guidelines, but above stricter maximums set by the United States. They bought a filter, worried about the health effects.
Nobody, government-wise, has really been doing anything. It's been a really closed-mouth type of situation, like we've had to look into it ourselves.
Jobst found contamination at half of the 15 homes he tested near the Gully. 4 were above Canadian limits and 4 above lower American limits. CBC Investigates had independent testing done at some of the sites, and the results were consistent with his findings. What's more, documents show that over a decade ago, Transport Canada knew contamination was spreading downstream. The local mayor is asking Ottawa to expand testing and provide bottled water. Do you think it's acceptable that Transport Canada hasn't tested anyone's drinking water on this road to date?
Well, I can't speak for Transport Canada, as I never would, but I would think that when we advise them that there's PFAS showing up in someone's drinking water, that they would act on that.
Transport Canada said it takes its responsibilities with respect to PFAS seriously. It won't comment further because of a proposed lawsuit on behalf of residents. No one knows for sure how far the contamination spreads.
There are solutions, there's ways to filter this from people's water, but they can't do that if they don't know they have it.
Jayla Bernstein, CBC News, Torbay, Newfoundland.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night